so-called glorious thousands of years ancient history of China, you will be left with the impression that they are based on some sort of mysterious chronicles. These alleged ancient chronicles, which we barely have access to, are barely 200 or 300 years old. Also, they want you to believe that the stories are based on some sort of very ancient recorded astronomical observations. She wants in this video to show us that these observations are actually very recent, and the oldest horoscope that they have is barely some 300 years old. To fix the problem with the obvious lack of correlation between the historic artifacts and so-called history, genuine historic sites are in this condition within the lattice garden, while so-called historic artifacts like the Great Wall of China, which, she adds, is actually still being built and is very modern, and are loudly advertised by the historians and the tourist agencies. And a pattern which will be repeating itself in future episodes again and again, she states. Their priority was to erase the history. In China, they drugged the local population literally to the point that they forgot who they were. That's how the traditional history was substituted with the mainstream fairy tales, and that's why historic sites like this, with high-tech tool marks, are ignored. All the grottos and caves we've seen so far are included in the official history of China. The historians find some place for them. If needed, they make up their own hypothesis and then present it as fact, but somehow they fit them in somewhere. But when it comes to the Quoshun and Long Q cases, we get total silence. Mainstream historians strongly prefer that they are not even mentioned at all in any cost. They classify them as mysterious and use more beautiful words like magical grotto of theological nuggets, while scientists weren't really versed in magic, she states. How can they say this is magical? What does magical even mean to them anyway, she asks. Now compare the historic Chinese tool mark with the latest modern equipment tool mark. The network of labyrinths is so vast that it stretches over 10 kilometers. Practically an entire mountain is made hollow. There is no trace of the stone that was taken out, which of course should have been the size of the mountain itself, she states. Was it taken off site, or was it spread around and by one of the great floods? It seems to the Chinese they had a good record of their own history before the fairy tales were forced with military power and drugs. It really appears that, compared to the Chinese people of the past, we are in an informal blackout these days, given the fact that China is the home of hundreds of pyramids, some of them very, very large. They aren't open for research, but they leave the impression that they are also made of earth. But there are stone pyramids as well, she states.